Hello, Asleah. I'm Robyn and I'm coming to you in 2 weeks' time, albeit two-dimensionally, over Zoom, to present my workshop, Speak, and Ye Shall Find, which is a play on the biblical phrase, Seek, and ye shall find. What is it going to be about? It's going to be about heuristics and the way in which we as interpreters have come to talk about ethics. And yet, in many ways, those ways of talking about ethics are not really recognizable to the field of ethics. A few years ago, when Trump was initially elected president, Stephen Colbert came up with a word, truthiness. And truthiness actually made it into, I believe it was Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And truthiness is a feeling or a sense that something is true, not necessarily based on facts, but just on kind of your hope or preference that it's true. And that pretty much describes the last 4 years of our history here in the U.S. But anyway, I came up with a word similar to that, and it's harder to say. It's ethicness, like truthiness, but ethicness. And ethicness is a series or terms of phrases used by interpreters or interpreter educators that hint at ethical material but are not themselves recognizable in the field of ethics. And that's what we're going to talk about. We've created within the field a series of things that we say to each other and to ourselves that appears to have an ethical nature, but when you dig down deeper, it really doesn't have the same substance that ethics expects. Let me give you an example. I oftentimes hear interpreters, when they want to justify a decision that was perhaps outside of the rhetoric of the field that interpreters, are just there to interpret, where they intervened because they were concerned for a deaf person or a hearing person's welfare. And sometimes they'll say, to justify that decision, well, I'm a person first, or I'm a human being, or I have to sleep at night. As a matter of fact, that last one, sleeping at night, made it into an interpreting ethics textbook called the Can You Sleep at Night principle. Now, the problem with saying things like I'm a person first, or I'm a human being, or can you make decisions based on whether or not you can sleep at night, I get what you mean, but those aren't actually ethical phrases. They point to ethical phrases, right, which is that term what ethicness is trying to say, but they're not they themselves ethics. Now, there are things in the field of ethics that talk about what I would suggest these phrases are pointing to. They're called non-maleficence and beneficence. The ethical value of do good, beneficence, and the ethical value of do no harm, non-maleficence. And so if interpreters were acting out of beneficence or non-maleficence, then we should say those terms. We shouldn't say things like, but I'm a person first, or can I sleep at night? Because basically you can justify any decision that you make by saying, but I'm a person first. Let's imagine that in the middle of a job, an interpreting job, I, as the interpreter, start tap dancing. And people then stop and say, what are you doing? I'm a person first, and I choose to dance. See, that's what I mean by when you dig down a little bit further to these phrases that you and I perhaps have all become comfortable with, you find that there's a problem. It doesn't have the ethical rigor necessary, and it doesn't have the shared understanding of those outside of our field to appreciate the kinds of things that we're doing. So how do we make those translations from the ethicness types of phrases to the ways in which ethics conveys some of those similar thoughts. But yeah, so we're going to start with the things that we say naturally, spontaneously, to one another, to ourselves, this series of phrases that we've come to sort of embrace as just the way we talk about interpreting, and to kind of problematize those, and then to talk about ways in which perhaps we can begin to translate those into ethical terms. So that's my promotional video. This is my FOMO. I hope you'll come. See you.